You carve pumpkins, you hand out candy, you dress up like sexy versions of things that shouldn't be sexy. But what if I told you that every single thing you do on Halloween, every tradition, started as something designed to keep you from being dragged into the underworld by the dead? I'm serious. The Celts didn't invent Halloween because they thought it would be cute. They invented it because they believed that on this one night, the barrier between our world and the world of the dead collapsed. And if you didn't perform the right rituals, you were screwed. We're going through 17 rituals that transformed into the holiday you know. And by the end, trick-or-treating is going to feel a lot less innocent. Look, Halloween is everywhere. It's a $10 billion industry. Everyone participates. But here's the thing. Nobody knows what they're actually doing. You're reenacting protection rituals against spirits you don't believe in. You're performing ceremonies that were literally banned by multiple religions because they were considered too dangerous. You're doing pagan stuff that got people burned at the stake. And you do it for fun, which is wild. By the end of this video, you'll understand why we do what we do on Halloween. And you're going to feel really weird about it next October. Let's start with blood. Ritual 1, Samhain, the night the veil collapsed. October 31st wasn't just another night for the Celts. It was the new year, the end of harvest season, the beginning of winter, and more importantly, it was the one night when the boundary between the living and the dead disappeared. The Celts believed that on Samhain, spirits could cross over. Your dead relatives, malevolent entities, demons, all of them could walk among the living. And this was not considered a good thing. This wasn't a celebration. This was survival. Everything that happened on Halloween, every ritual, every tradition, was designed to protect you from what was coming through that veil. So let's talk about how they protected themselves. Ritual 2, the bonfires. The Celts built massive communal fires on Samhain. And I mean massive. Entire communities gathering around blazing pyres. But here's what makes this interesting. These weren't just wood fires. They were bonfires. The Celts would slaughter livestock, cattle, sheep, pigs, and burn their bones in these fires. The term bonfire literally comes from bone fire, not good fire, bone fire. Why? Because the smoke and smell were believed to repel evil spirits. You were creating a barrier, a wall of flame and stench between you and the things trying to cross over. And when the communal fire died down, people would take embers home to relight their own hearths. If your fire went out on Samhain, you were vulnerable. You needed that protection burning all night. So every time you gather around a bonfire on Halloween, roasting marshmallows and having a cute time, you're standing in a tradition that involved burning animal bones to keep demons away. Ritual 3, animal sacrifice. The Celts didn't just burn bones, they offered blood. Animals were ritually slaughtered during Samhain as offerings to the gods and to appease the spirits of the dead. Cattle, sheep, horses, these weren't just practical slaughters for winter provisions. These were ceremonies. The blood was spilled intentionally. The timing was specific. This was about making sure the gods and the dead were satisfied, so they'd leave you alone. And here's where it gets darker. Ritual 4, human sacrifice. There's debate among historians about whether the Celts practiced human sacrifice, but the archaeological evidence is suggestive. Let me tell you about Lindoman. In 1984, workers cutting peat in England found a body from around 2 BCE. He'd been given a special last meal, burned bread, ritually significant. Then he was hit on the head twice, then strangled with a cord, then his throat was cut, and then he was placed face down in the bog. This wasn't murder. This was overkill. This was ceremony. Historians believe it happened during Samhain, a human sacrifice to ensure the crops would grow and the tribe would survive the winter. So when you're at a Halloween bonfire this year, just remember, you're standing in a tradition that possibly involved watching a person get ritually murdered. Progress, I guess. Ritual 5, wearing disguises. Now, if spirits were walking the earth on Samhain, you had a problem. How do you avoid them? The Celtic solution? Confuse them. People would wear costumes made from animal skins and heads. They'd blacken their faces with ash. They'd disguise themselves, so that if they encountered a malevolent spirit, it wouldn't recognize them as human. You weren't dressing up for fun. You were camouflaging yourself to survive the night. Some people even dressed up as the spirits themselves, hoping that if they looked like the dead, the actual dead would leave them alone. So when your kid dresses up as a ghost or a skeleton, they're participating in a 2,000-year-old survival strategy. Ritual 6. Leaving offerings outside. If the dead were walking, you wanted to keep them outside your home, so the Celts would leave food and drink on their doorsteps as offerings. The logic was simple. If you fed the spirits, they'd be satisfied and move on. They wouldn't come inside. They wouldn't curse you. This is where Halloween decorations actually come from. You're marking your home. You're saying, "Hey, spirits, here's your offering. Now leave me alone." Except now, your offering is a plastic skeleton and some fake cobwebs. But the principle is the same. Ritual 7. The Dumb Supper. Okay, so far we've talked about keeping the dead away, but sometimes you wanted to talk to them. Enter the Dumb Supper. This was a ritual practiced across Celtic and later Christian communities. On Halloween night, families would set extra places at their dinner table, empty chairs, plates of food. These were for their dead relatives. And here's the rule: complete silence. You ate in total darkness. No speaking, no noise, because if you broke the silence, you broke the protection. People genuinely believed their dead relatives would come and sit in those chairs and eat that food. In 16th century Scotland, a young woman screamed during a dumb supper. She claimed she saw her dead father sitting in his chair, eating. 3 days later, she died. So when you set out candy for trick-or-treaters, you're doing a sanitized version of leaving food for the dead. Ritual 8. Souling. The original trick-or-treating. Let's talk about trick-or-treating. You think it's cute, kids going door to door, getting candy. But it started as protection money. In medieval Britain and Ireland, poor people, soulers, would go door to door on Halloween. They'd offer to pray for your dead relatives in exchange for soul cakes. Sounds nice, right? Except refusing them was a curse. People genuinely believed that if you turned away a souler, your crops would fail, your livestock would die, your family would get sick. So you gave them food, not out of generosity, out of fear. The trick in trick or treat wasn't a prank. It was a threat. Give me something, or face the consequences. Ritual 9. Carving turnips. You carve pumpkins. Everyone carves pumpkins. But originally, people carved turnips, and they carved them with grotesque, terrifying faces. Why? Because of the legend of Stingy Jack. Jack was a con man who tricked the devil twice. When Jack died, God wouldn't let him into heaven because he was terrible. But the devil wouldn't let him into hell either because Jack had humiliated him. So Jack was stuck, wandering the earth forever, with nothing but a carved-out turnip and a coal ember to light his way. People believed Jack's spirit roamed on Halloween, looking for a way in. So they carved turnips with scary faces and put embers inside to ward him off. When Irish immigrants came to America, they discovered pumpkins were way easier to carve. So they switched. But the principle remained: you're carving a grotesque face to scare away a damned soul. Ritual 10. Guising. Performing for your supper. In Scotland and Ireland, there was a variation on souling called guising. Children would dress up in costumes and go door to door. But they didn't just ask for food. They had to earn it. They'd perform, sing a song, tell a joke, recite a poem, and only if the homeowner was satisfied would they receive their treat. This wasn't just entertainment. This was part of the ritual exchange. You were proving you deserved the offering. So when kids stand on your porch in costume, waiting for candy, they're reenacting a ritual where they had to perform to receive protection from supernatural curses. Ritual 11. Apple bobbing and divination. Halloween wasn't just about protecting yourself from the dead, it was also about seeing the future. The Celts believed that because the veil was thin on Samhain, you could divine things. You could see who you'd marry, when you'd die, what the coming year would bring. One of the most popular methods? Apple bobbing. Young women would bob for apples, and the order in which they caught them would reveal the order in which they'd get married. Or they'd peel an apple in one long strip and throw the peel over their shoulder. The shape it made would form the initial of their future husband's name. These weren't games. These were divination rituals. You were trying to glimpse the future on the one night when the supernatural was accessible. So when you bob for apples at a Halloween party, you're participating in ancient fortune-telling. Ritual 12, leaving doors and windows open. Some Celtic households would actually invite the dead inside. They'd leave doors and windows open on Samhain, not to let in any random spirit, but specifically to welcome their deceased loved ones. The belief was that your ancestors would return home on this night, and if you didn't let them in, if you didn't welcome them, they'd be offended, and an offended ancestor could curse you. So you left the door open, you set out food, you made space for them at the table, and you hoped they'd come peacefully, eat their fill, and leave without causing problems. Ritual 13, All Saints' Day, the church takes over. Okay, so the Celts had all these rituals: blood sacrifices, bonfires, feeding the dead, carving scary faces into vegetables, and then Christianity showed up. And instead of stopping these rituals, the church did something way more interesting. They absorbed them. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III established November 1st as All Saints' Day, a day to honor all Christian saints and martyrs. And where did he put it? Right on top of Samhain. This wasn't an accident. This was calculated. The church couldn't stop people from celebrating Samhain, so they gave them a Christian alternative. Same day, same themes of death and the afterlife. All Saints' Day became All Hallows' Day. The night before became All Hallows' Eve, which became Halloween. The church basically said, you want to honor the dead? Fine, but you're going to do it our way now. Ritual 14, All Souls' Day and Purgatory. But the church didn't stop there. They invented All Souls' Day on November 2nd, a day specifically dedicated to praying for the souls of the dead who were stuck in purgatory. And here's where things get dark. The church created an entire theology around this. They said that when you die, if you're not good enough for heaven, but not bad enough for hell, you go to purgatory, and you suffer there until your sins are purged. But here's the thing. People on earth could help you. They could pray for you. They could pay priests to say masses for your soul. The church literally commercialized communication with the dead. They created a system where you could buy your loved ones out of torment. And if you didn't pay for those prayers, your dead relatives would suffer longer. This made Halloween way more terrifying than the Celts ever intended. Ritual 15, Requiem Masses. The church formalized prayers for the dead into Requiem Masses. These were special services performed specifically to help souls escape purgatory. And they were expensive. Wealthy families would pay for dozens, sometimes hundreds of masses to be said for their deceased relatives. The poor couldn't afford this, so the rich could buy their way out of purgatory faster. The poor would suffer longer. This created a theological economy where death became a business. And Halloween, All Souls' Day, was the peak season. This is why Halloween has such a dark, gothic atmosphere. It's not from Celtic paganism, it's from Catholic theology. Ritual 16, the Witches' Sabbath. And then the church made things even worse. During the witch hunt craze of the 15th to 17th centuries, Halloween became associated with witchcraft. The church claimed that witches gathered on All Hallows' Eve for a witches' Sabbath, a meeting where they'd worship Satan, perform dark magic, and plot against Christians. This wasn't real, but people believed it. In 1590, King James VI of Scotland, the King James Bible guy, was convinced that witches had gathered on Halloween to plot his assassination through magic. So he rounded up suspected witches and tortured them until they confessed. One woman, Agnes Sampson, was sleep-deprived, had her head shaved, and tortured until she confessed to meeting Satan himself on Halloween night. And then they strangled her and burned her body. King James even wrote a book about it, Demonology, a guide to identifying and prosecuting witches. So when you think about Halloween and witches, you're thinking about the church's propaganda campaign that got innocent people murdered. Ritual 17, praying at graves. The final ritual, visiting graves. On All Souls' Day, people would go to cemeteries to pray for their dead. They'd leave flowers, light candles, perform prayers and rituals. This was part of the church's system. You went to the grave, you prayed, you helped your loved one escape purgatory. But it also connected back to the original Celtic belief. On Samhain, the dead were close. You could communicate with them. So people would go to graves on Halloween to feel close to their deceased relatives, to talk to them, to honor them. And this tradition continues today. In many cultures, people visit graves around Halloween. They leave offerings. They light candles. They're performing the same ritual humans have performed for thousands of years, trying to maintain a connection with the people they've lost. Okay, let's review. Halloween started with the Celts trying not to get dragged into the underworld by performing blood sacrifices and lighting bonfires. Then it evolved into people trying to communicate with their dead relatives by leaving food out and carving scary faces into turnips. Then the church showed up and said, "You know what this needs? Purgatory and witch trials. Let's make this way darker." And then, over centuries, all of that slowly got sanitized into candy and costumes. But here's the thing, the rituals never went away. You're still doing them. You're just doing them without understanding why. Every time you carve a pumpkin, you're warding off evil spirits. Every time you hand out candy, you're appeasing the supernatural to avoid a curse. Every time you light a candle or gather around a fire, you're participating in a 2,000-year-old protection ritual. You're performing ancient ceremonies designed to keep you safe from forces you don't even believe in anymore. And that's actually the scariest thing about Halloween. We've forgotten what we're afraid of, but we're still performing the rituals just in case.